Breaking news, our Jonathan Jones reporting that Jadeveon Clowney is signing with the Browns, a one-year deal in the neighborhood of around $8 million with incentives that could get it up to $10 million. Browns continuing to bolster that D, and that's going to be quite the 1-2 punch from the edge with Jadeveon Clowney teaming with Myles Garrett. And as JJ points out on his latest tweet, that's 3 former #1 overall picks on the roster with Clowney, Garrett, and the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Clowney drafted first overall by the Texans back in 2014, a 3-time Pro Bowler, but he did not have a sack in 8 games with the Titans last season. Not much of a pass rusher, doesn't get to the quarterback as much as you would think he would, but pretty good in the run game, coming off a season-ending knee injury in November. Let's get Jonathan Jones in here. JJ, this has been in the works for years. Cleveland has wanted Jadeveon Clowney for a long time. How'd they finally get it done?
Well, they finally got it done because several weeks ago, they had Jadeveon Clowney in Cleveland on a visit. And they thought that they were going to be close to the deal. And then, sort of as a surprise, Clowney left. And, you know, this was a couple weeks into free agency, and they had what is essentially the same offer on the table that he just signed. They had that on the table then. You know, this is a pretty good deal for a guy who, yes, he was a former #1 overall pick, but a guy who's coming off, as we just showed, season-ending surgery, a guy who didn't have any sacks last season, and so a little bit of surprise that he didn't sign that. But he came back to Cleveland just today, and I think that he arrived in Cleveland last night, was supposed to get there on Sunday and go to the docks on Monday. He had a scheduling snafu and wound up getting there, obviously, again, last night. And then on Wednesday, the doc saw him, everything checked out. The Browns are happy, Jadeveon Clowney is happy, and now, of course, you put him on the other side of Myles Garrett. You consider what else they have up front, and Sheldon Richardson and Andrew Billings as well. They signed Takk McKinley to a 1-year deal that, you know, he's going to be a nice rotational piece, certainly not an every down rusher for the Browns. So they finally got their guy. Chris, as you mentioned, after more than a year of trying, Jadeveon Clowney is now in Cleveland.
So what does he and the others they've brought in free agency this offseason, what does that make this Browns D as they try to take another huge step? Finally got that playoff victory, but looking to finally get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and look, they took care of the defensive line up front. Again, they were in the J.J. Watt sweepstakes when the Texans let him go. And I think a lot of people were surprised by the number that the Arizona Cardinals had in terms of the teams who were contenders. In terms of playoff contenders that J.J. Watt could have chosen from. It is my belief and understanding that the Browns had the best offer to Watt among the teams that you would say they could be in the conference championship game in their respective conference. And so they struck out on him, but they were always, again, going to pursue Jadeveon Clowney if they struck out there. They, again, signed Takk McKinley to that 1-year deal. You look at the back end of that defense, and they were aggressive in pursuit of John Johnson after he left the Rams. They got Troy Hill. You know, they're getting back Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit from injury. So I think, listen, the middle of their defense, the linebacking group, that's a little soft. I don't know. They're picking at 26. If that linebacker is going to be there for them, you know, the top 2 there in the draft. I don't think Micah Parsons is going to be there. Wu from Notre Dame, doubt he's there at 26. But Chris, will not at all be surprised if the Browns go defense when they are picking in the first round, be it another corner, perhaps an edge rusher, if a guy like a Jalen Phillips perhaps is falling because of medical concerns. I can absolutely see the Browns continuing to add to that defense here in a couple weeks when the draft is right in their backyard in Cleveland.
Yeah, 2 weeks from Thursday is the first round, and in Ryan Wilson's latest mock draft, he has him taking the linebacker Jamin Davis out of Kentucky at number 26 overall. I mistakenly said Browns get back to the Super Bowl when I asked you that question. Obviously, they've never made the Super Bowl. One of 4 teams trying to get to the Super Bowl for the first time. So, JJ, Jadeveon Clowney has the name, right? I mean, he was so good as a college player, made some incredible plays, #1 overall pick, but he's never really been the pass rusher that some teams have wanted. So what is Jadeveon Clowney at this point in his career?
Well, it's a big if, and I texted a source, listen, this is a heck of a deal for the Cleveland Browns if he's healthy. And source texted back, it's the biggest if of 2021. I don't know. There's a lot going on in the world in 2021. Maybe it's not the biggest if, but you look in the NFL and, if you're – I don't think that the Browns are necessarily relying on Jadeveon Clowney to be healthy throughout the season. Myles Garrett is playing at an extremely elite level. They still have, again, Takk McKinley, a rotational player. This is not putting them out of the sweepstakes for an edge rusher in the first round of the draft. So this is a lot of money to a guy, again, who has been injured, who has not gotten that sack production. He gets back there. He just doesn't get the sacks that you want him to. The sort of production that, he came up right down the road from me in Rock Hill, South Carolina. This is a guy who, and I mean this with no hyperbole, he could have played in the NFL his senior year of high school. I'm not saying start in the NFL, but he could have just gone to the NFL and been on a roster. And really, it's him and Adrian Peterson are the only two guys that you can say that about in really the last 20 years of football. And so with those sort of expectations, yeah, you would hope that he would be on some incredible sack records. He's catching Strahan each season for the single season sack record, or in pursuit of Bruce Smith for the all-time record. He just hasn't been there, but he can get into the backfield. And look, we can sit here and say now that he's across the defensive line from Myles Garrett, he's going to get the sacks. Well, he was across the line from a defensive player of the year in J.J. Watt for a couple years and still didn't get that production down in Houston. So, again, it's going to be a big if, but the Cleveland Browns have been aggressive in free agency these last couple of years. Now the second free agency and draft under general manager Andrew Berry and his fantastic staff there. And so I'm excited to see what happens there because, look, you look at the AFC, certainly you look at their division alone, and they have to overcome Baltimore twice in a season and a struggling, of course, Steelers team. But you look in that division, and you have to get over the top if you're going to face a Josh Allen, if you're going to face a Patrick Mahomes in the AFC divisional round or title game. And the only way that you're going to beat those guys, as we saw in Super Bowl 55, is if you can affect the passer. If Clowney is healthy in January and he's getting back there in the backfield, this is a fantastic one-year deal for the Cleveland Browns.
He was one of 4 remaining top 50 free agents according to Pete Prisco's top 100 list. So only 3 remain. Clowney was number 43. He's headed to Cleveland on a 1-year deal, according to our Jonathan Jones here on HQ. The Cleveland Browns got over the hump last season. They'll look to take another step as they try to get to the Super Bowl, 11-1 to win the AFC and 22-1 to win the whole thing.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.